Uh, Good evening if you're listening or watching this FORSEA Dialogue on Democratic Struggles um, on the YouTube channel from Southeast Asia. And if you're listening from the United States and Europe, good afternoon. I'm Zani. I'm the organizer and host of a FORSEA Dialogue series on democratic struggles around the world. And I have very distinguished gentlemen who will be sharing their uh, firsthand experiences inside Myanmar military's notorious Insein jail in two different periods. And the Burmese gentleman, and also he's a brother in arm, is Ko Aung, based in London, and another one is a Japanese brother, 28 years old, Toru Kobuta. He's from Tokyo, but he's currently visiting United Kingdom, where he also studied documentary filmmaking in London. And so, the Toru, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
My name is Toru Kobuta. Um, as you kindly introduced me, I'm a filmmaker based in Japan, and I started filmmaking after I met some Rohingya refugees living in Japan. It was in 2014, and since then I started working on the Burma's issue, especially on the Rohingya ethnics and the other minority groups marginalized inside the country. And then last year, 2022, which was on July 30th, I was filming the anti-military Yangon. I was arrested by the police soldiers while filming on the streets. Then I was sentenced to 10 years of imprisonment in Insein prison. But after 4 months, I could have been released thanks to all the international pressures. And then I'm now speaking up for the issue, and I'm now it's an honor to speak about my experience and my current project, which was about the supporting the journalist of Burma who's in exile or in hiding. Thank you very much.
Ko Aung, your turn.
Yeah, my name is Ko Aung. I give my Ko Aung name is after I joined the student movement in 1987, no 1988, and I'm a founding member of like All Burma Federation of Student Unions, a catalyst for 1988 student uprising in Burma. And then after 4 days of military seizure power in 18th of September 1988, and I was arrested and then tortured and in prison for 7 years, sentence with hard labor. And I spent prison for 5 years, 8 months, and 24 days and 11 hours in notorious Insein prison. And after my release, and I joined another student movement called 1996 student movement. When the students took on the street, and then the military trying to catch me, and I ran away to the jungle to join the ABSDF. And then I came over here and to the United Kingdom and seek refuge, and I'm a proud to be political refugees in United Kingdom. And since then I arrived, I played my role to support to the Palestine movement and the student activists inside Burma until now. And I travel every year to the Thai Burma border to support my comrades, my friends, and the schools in refugee camps. In United Kingdom, I work in the BBC as a sound technician until 2012. After that, I studied law. I got a master in human rights, and I'm now practicing public law in United Kingdom. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you are both aware that we titled this dialogue "The Decades of Persecution, torture, and executions of journalists as well as activists. Anyone who dares to expose the military's the half-century misrule that has ruined the country and kept the country in a perpetual state of the internal political conflict, as well as the military's genocide of Rohingya people. Ko Aung, you also know some of the the student activists, the other activists who were executed by the military over the last 40 years, like Jimmy and others, right?
Yeah.
So we also want to make sure that we do not forget those who have been executed since the February 2021 military coup. We as a country has one of the largest numbers of journalists and activists being thrown in jail, executed summarily, tortured, forced into exilehood. About 156 journalists have been arrested or detained or forced into exilehood, and about 50 of these journalists remain in jail. Let me just turn first to Toru-san to talk about, how specifically he got arrested and what kind of like a judicial process he had to go through.
Let me get started. The latest visit to Yangon last year. So I entered the country in July. My purpose was to film one of my friends still living in Yangon and working in a more like grassroots, not really directly political, but supporting each other on more like a humanitarian basis. So my purpose was to make a documentary about them, not really about the protesters, because I knew that it would be too risky for me and for my contributors if I go there and film. So we kind of made set the rule that we not going to the political movements, like this is obvious. After I spent like 1 week, 2 weeks, I started feeling like the kind of weird sense that the town is too silent, and the daily life as much as like same as the before the coup. But in fact the violence is lurking in the shadow. So I started realizing by hearing more stories. For example, people who's just living on the streets without anything, like get beaten by the police for no reason, and their like little money was robbed by the police and military. Those kind of story made me think, it might be very important to film the protesters, because if they are still doing these kind of activities during that period, this is like to show how suppressed they are, what the oppression is like. So at some point it made me like emotional rush at some points, and I decided to go to the protest. But protest is more like very not spontaneous. How to say it's not announced, because this is very hidden. So what they do is they have the very secret network organized in the protest, and they just gather at the moment, like minutes. They march and run, But they can do protest only 1 minute with this kind of maximum, because otherwise this would come and even like police car like just crashed into the protesters like some point and they kill the protesters like indiscriminately. These kind of things can happen. So what they do is called the flash protests. They can do the protest very few minutes, only a minute, and they just run. I caught some information about the time and the place, and I headed the place, and I was filming from the distance around like 30 to 50 meters behind from the protesters. Then my plan was just to pretend as a walking just person who just walking past by. Then so after the protesters were gone, I just turned around, turned the corner to the right, and then I realized there was a car approaching behind from me. Then as soon as I realized there's a car, the two of the guys rushed out from the car and pointed the gun at me. It was not like a pistol; it was more like proper like rifles, and they pointed the gun at me and just they screamed something. They handcuffed me and took me to the police station. And then what's happened in the police station was they made me and the other protesters that they caught to hold that banner. Banner was used in the protesters, and then so they forced me to put that banner too. They took the picture, photograph the four of us and 3 other protesters. And later that photograph was used as evidence that I actually participated in the protests. I was the one who instigated the people in the protests. And then the photo was used as evidence in the court as well. And then they gave me 3 charges, and one is a sedition charge. The second one is Telecommunication Act. Third one was Immigration Act violation. Those 3 charges were because they found out during the interrogation that I made a film. I previously made a film about Rohingya. I went to the Rakhine State a few times, and I went to Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar as well. So they found my film that was posted on a local Burmese media, and then they found out that I was the one. Either film about Rohingya and show some support that made me that provoked the interrogator as well. So obviously, like they didn't like it, but they didn't really touch me. They didn't. They touched me, but they didn't really hit me. Or they didn't physically torture me. If I had been the Burmese local journalist, would have been taken to the interrogation center first, get the maximum torture. But they didn't do that because they knew that I was a foreign national. Yeah, and then they brought me to the detention cell, which was very small, but more than 20 people were squeezed into. I spent 4 or 5 nights with the other criminals, and then after 5 days, they transferred me to the Insein prison, and they locked me up in solitary confinement. And then I was not really. I didn't have any access to the other like local prisoner at the moment. Then I spent 4 months. And then I was suddenly released on the day of November 17th, 2000.
So did I mean you grew up in do you feel that you have to go through proper due process of equal representation, or also or tribunal or trial, like like if you don't have legal representation, are you allowed to challenge the obviously doctored or manufactured. I mean, I asked the same question to Ko Aung as well, because 40 years before your arrest, Ko Aung went through the similar process. And so the first, the Toru and then Ko Aung. So what were your trials at the hands of the military judges and courts, or even civilian judges there?
Okay, I'll answer the first. So they gave me the 3 charges, and I went through the 2 different kinds of court actually. The 2 of them, the sedition charge 505, and then telecommunication act, which somehow belongs to the martial court. This was more for the military people judge. So they brought me to the military court. It was like small, like dark room, where 3 uniformed soldiers are standing in front of me. I've got really poor translator. No lawyer were allowed to enter the court, so I couldn't bring any lawyer to the military court. And then the soldier in the middle, like they're reading out the paper so loud that you almost like screaming, like something like too long, Burmese language, of course. Then they speak like 1 minute. The translated like 1 single sentence. So, and which was like you made very bad image of Burma or something. So you got like you barely got any chance to speak something against them at all. And then in the end, they asked me like, do you have anything to add? And then I thought, I just said no because I knew that it wouldn't help anything. Then that point they gave me 7 years of sentence. Yes.
And then they later gave you a bonus of another 3 years.
Yeah, bonus of 3 years. 3 years were given actually some other normal criminal court maybe in with the Immigration Act violation.
So were you allowed consular access, because as a foreign national being detained or arrested, you're entitled to access to your embassy, right? Were you allowed representation? If so, like how long did it take?
It took almost a month, or I remember it was 3 weeks. Yeah, it took 3 weeks until I first got in touch with the Japanese embassy. Yeah, to the point, of course, my first priority to reach out to Japanese embassy at the point I was arrested. So, but they didn't let me to do it. So I was on a kind of a hunger strike, while they put me into the small detention cell. So I didn't eat anything at the moment, but somehow the Burmese, the junta reported this fact that I did not eat to the Japanese embassy, that I did not eat because I didn't like the Burmese food. And then at the point the Japanese embassy sent me some like Japanese rice balls to me. It's very kind.
Like a sushi delivered. So Ko Aung, like of course, I'm not making the rather frightening situation of being in detention with about 20 other criminals. Can you share your experience of your arrest, your trial, the torture, to the extent that is mentally healthy for you? Because I understand, like you had an extremely inhumane treatment at the hands of the military in 1988. You are muted.
Of course, I couldn't share my kind of inhumane and demoralized and then treatment and then ill-treated by by a Sequay military dog. Though those people have no such a the brain in I mean thoughtful brain in their inside, even though I'm so young at the time, age or
You were
like
21.
8 or 18 or 19, yeah.
Oh.
You know, since the arrest, the reason of my arrest is like to do with a kind of like conspiracy theory that they arrest us, kind of like fake telephone conversation that they intercept buying that to their like ABSFU headquarters, which is like ask by the like Bago student unions. They need to help because they got the guns in their hand. They don't know how to do it, how to hide it, and how do they handle it. So they asked the ABSFU, and then it was at time was picked up by the Kokoji, and the Kokoji said, asked me to go to solve those problem. It was we already have like too busy to organize and mobilize for the protests, and as well as and some because of that the military already seeks the power. It was like 22nd of like September, just 4 days, and my fellow students red fighting peacock groups are running away to the jungle to revolt. So I've been like so busy, and then Kokoji asked me to resolve the problem because of like you know, I'm a like responsibility for the security and discipline committee, and I'm an executive member in the and so I only that my group can dismantle and how to shift it to the guns to moving around. So he asked me to go. And then when we reached to the Bago town near the bridge, and then military intelligence and the military blocked the road and arrest us. And then this is a 6 of our comrades. 2 is a like former like defected soldiers from airport, and then the navy. 2 of them, and then another 4 students, including me. And they seated, you know, their arrest was defeated by the army, the military dog. And we are being arrested at the time. And then I was, because at the group, I'm only one person in the executive committee member of all Burma Federation Student Unions. The point. So, but the things at the time, I was driving a car, Hilux car, my Hilux like pickup car. So they thought that I'm a driver. And then I pretend to be I'm a driver, and then until just after the one night, they found out that I'm the one that they sent a picture to the military intelligence center, and that I'm the one that they need. So since then, you know, I've been like tortured, ill-treated, and they took me to took me to the military, different military intelligence centers, and like beaten, torture, ill-treated, you know, that's like inhumane treatment. You know, I can't tell you that how I've been through. You know, this so much painful for me to talk through about how they treated to me. It was like I'm a 19-year-old. You know, I said to them, you know, it's like you a guy, you don't know me. I'm a only student. How you heart can inflict to the such a pain to the other, you know, me. So in forcing me to confession out of me after this nearly 6 months of ongoing torture, and then they sentenced me with the other my comrade to the 7 years with hard labor. And at the time, in Burma, it's like whether if you are the way they sentencing to the political opponent is very directly controlled by the army, regardless of you are military or you are civil. Anyway, this is quite a funny thing. It's like when I cook a friend in a room, when they sentence me that day, which is like the New Year Day in Burma, April. We are not care about sentencing or any kind of thing. We don't care about any, and we don't actually recognize their judicial systems, because the judge in front of me is just a puppet, just a reading the message from the military. In my case, the judges are reading the wrong sentence paper. So he actually know us, and then find out one or two paragraphs. He thought this is wrong. Okay, let's put in the envelope and then get another envelope. Open and sentencing. This is the way they practice in the crash to the political opponents inside Burma. We prisoners always talk about sentencing system in Burma is a kind of inflation. After the 1988, and when they sentence, it's like maximum of 7 years, minimum of 3 years. When we reached the 1990 and 1991, and the sentence increased to the minimum of 10 years, a maximum of 20 years or 30 years. And after that, grow on and go on. Like you may remember that in 2007, the Minkuna and all the people are like 60 years and 70 years, and the kind of sentencing, just making nonsense, no sense about anything. So, but prison situation is totally different with the foreigners and us. That it is already Toru know it, how they treat it different way, especially time different as well. When I was arrested and when I was put in the prison, there have been no such electricity out there because of during 1988 this Insein prison was riot and the ban. So normally every say block are 2-story, but they ban only one say block number 1, which is a 2-story. Other is becoming 1-story house. At the time, I was put in say block number 5. So there be no electricity. The room is no clean. There be no such a clean. There's so smell, and I only have in my luckily I got a jacket at the time because raining season, so I got a jacket. Apart from the jacket, I never got any a blanket or any. They didn't provide any, and I cannot allow to go out for extensive day. And that all that urine and sanity are so smell inside. That they give me the little the bucket with the piss and shit out in there. That's it. That's if I not go out, how I can clean it? So these urine are full up, smell the whole room. Yeah, this part of my sentencing. I can talk about so many experience on a prison and then like being for 5 years, 8 months. So like I got a thoroughly know, I've been every part of the insane prison, that they moving around. So like I'm a naughty, notorious wine to against this like prison system. So thank you.
Yeah, I think from what you both shared, the trial and prison experiences. Of course, like the Toru as a foreign national, particularly Japan. Japan is quite on good terms with the Burmese military, and Japanese governments, over the last 10, 15 years have always denied that they're in full diplomatic relations with the Burmese military that has commissioned a full-scale genocide against Rohingya people. So Toru got good protection, and there are also other foreign nationals with some of the business links or the full diplomatic ties from UK or Australia. I mean, they were all released, despite the long years of imprisonment or the sentences. Of course, that for the locals, I recently interviewed a Burmese journalist in exile named Wei Mo in Chiang Mai. And he said he was 14 years old when he was he was first arrested. And, they would, 4 or 5 guys would hit him, beat him, during interrogation. And he said, seeing stars and moons, it was not an exaggerated expression. It was like, he said, like, like I was only a young, tiny, thin teenager, and 5 big soldiers or military intelligence agents that beat me up. And also, like Toru showed at your university at South Bank Law School, this 6 minutes video made by Burmese director, a woman director, that talk about sexual violence. How a woman got subject to all kinds of sexual abuses behind bars. And so let me from what you were saying, the sentences have become highly inflated from about 3 years minimum and 7 years maximum in 1988 or even 1975. During Utan uprising, it was 7 years maximum. Now, like even the ex-general Kenyon, who was at the time head of intelligence, and when he got fired or sacked by the top guy Tan Shui, he was given 48 years imprisonment. This is like ex-general who was doing all kinds of like dodgy torture schemes against the dissidents. And so obviously the sentencing has become progressively worse, and the judicial system remains completely and utterly in the hands of the military. So we've got these farcical court hearings, like now, like Aung San Suu Kyi has been put through this appeals, and and as you said, I think the dissidents ought to start making outright rejection. We don't recognize your repressive law. We don't recognize your judicial or jurisdiction. We don't recognize that you have any authority or moral or political over the lives of our people, right? So let me just turn to Toru, moving away from the prison and torture. Can you talk about the journalists who have been forced out of the country, and by one estimate about 400, in various countries. Most of them are stuck in Mesa, and you got this, program that you set up with a fellow Japanese journalist, docu-a-thon. Can you explain what you're trying to achieve with the docu-a-thon?
Okay. So as I went through how journalism is oppressed inside Burma, I experienced by myself, and then I could have been released only because I am a foreign national, and there was international pressure out there. If I had been a Burmese national, I would there's a highly possible that I could have been killed or tortured, or I would have spent 10 years. Um, this this is yeah, this is the fact, and that made me think that I need to support journalists from Burma, because there are many people who still locked up, and then their voices have been deprived of. And then I even remember, like, I feel like the voices, they entrusted the voices to me. Um, like literally, some of them like patted my shoulder when I was released, like, please keep working on Burma. Some of the journalists who's still inside a prison. Then so we started like I started the project called Bokyatan after I was released, uh, which to support the journalists of Burma. I started this with Yuki Kitazumi, a former Japanese prisoner as well, a Japanese national who was in Insein prison in 2021. He was also arrested while reporting. And so what we did was to make a website called docuatan.com, and then we showcase the films from the journalists or filmmakers of Burma who's still working in hiding or in exile, and then we put translation of Japanese and English to the film, and then anyone can watch them for free on the website and YouTube channel. But they can also donate directly to each creator. So that's how. So there are many journalists still working, while even though they're risking their lives. Some of them are still inside the country, and some people left and working in the borderland area, such as in Thailand or in India or somewhere else. But even if get out from the country, your life is not so secure, especially in Thailand. The Thailand like local police can catch you anytime because you're not documented. Of course, they had to leave the country without any registration, because otherwise they will be arrested or deported back to Burma. So they just they had to cross the border illegally, and then that made them undocumented, and that made the Thai police anytime exploit them by asking, do you have a document? If you don't have, like, pay as much as you have. So this is the situation of the hundreds of thousands of Burmese nationals still hiding in the neighboring countries. Yeah. And of course, there was some of like journalists, they want to do as much as with their ability. They are professionals. They can do more than they are doing if they have more support. So the docuatan's purpose is to constantly offer the opportunity for them to work on what they really want to do, and then not only like financially supporting. Docuatan's atan means this voice or support, a voice opinion in Burmese language, which is about. So we not only support financially, we just raise our voices together. So this is our idea of atan. We want to empower the journalists, our filmmaker, artists from.
Yeah. No. Thank you. the people should check out DocuAthon and join hands with people like Toru to make sure that the Burmese journalists who have been forced out of the country into exile in different places not only have enough funding support, but opportunities for them to continue doing what they think is most important, because they're not just simply professional journalists, doing assignment and then moving on to the next project, because they are connected to the larger, the people's struggle for freedom. And so let me turn to Ko Aung about the larger resistance. Before the Ukraine, Russian, conflict, where Ukraine is resisting against foreign invaders. Many of us in diaspora, Burmese diaspora around the world, had to tiptoe around armed resistance. You travel, almost every year to all Burma students, the Democratic Front and other ethnic resistance organizations areas in Karenni, in particular Karen and Shan. Like for a long time, we did not feel comfortable talking about armed revolution, right? But that taboo has been broken since the entire Western governments and societies are openly arming Ukrainian resistance. Journalists from BBC were found tweeting how to throw Molotov cocktails at the Russian tanks, and so the entire Western media complex, as well as governments, think tanks, civil societies, were openly supporting armed resistance put up by brave Ukrainian people. And so now we can openly talk about what the Burmese resistance also need. Although we are fighting our own military that turns terroristic towards its own people, and the Russian invaders or invasion is by a foreign actor. In essence, we are looking at two peoples or two national communities resisting this, the ruthless repressors. So can you talk about your view on armed resistance, civil disobedience movement and all, and then I asked Toru his experience traveling across Ukraine recently.
Yeah, I've been like early this year, and then start from the December 2022 until January 2003. And the same area, like Greeny area and the KNU area, and people like Shan area. The movement in this area that I've been are very strong, and which is like and this long battle with the military is a KNU and KMPP are fully supported to our movement. And then our movement and the people defense forces are supporting under the command of like KNU and KNPP. So like they are really such a strong position out there, and not and then also like Zagain division is like, and Chin state is really strong and very much of Burmese, the military dog are they, even though they can like kind of like and like move it on the ground. So like they only use like an air forces in a long range launcher or shelling out there. Apart from that, they are losing every single ground in those areas. And Sagain, it's Korean area, recently, like Kachin having took the one of the like their outposts as well. You know, KIA has a really strong position as well to support our movement. That so like it is a really like a positive of like the Spring Revolution contributed to change the system in Burma. Is a moving forward, but you know like we need to like carefully think through about strategy wise and policy and tactic and you know everything that we need to, because of we can't walk with the old political system and old political movement. This movement have been long enough, the 70 years, over 70 years. That's why I'm like, Zani and me and Toru, we are trying to support the young generation that come up with a different idea, different thought. They are very smart. I would like to, that's why I said to them, my 88 generation comrades, including Paul Wu, Minko Nai, Keiju, Kogoji people, and Jominyu and everyone, I told them, this is a time to show that up. Transfer your power to the young generation. It is a time. And then you will be there, you can be the lead to them, but position might be that they are, position, idea, and everything if it change. So you need to recognize that change and to support the young generation. Only one can liberate. My thought is only one can liberate this atrocity system, not about digital or everything, culturally, we need to kind of radically revolt to that change. Otherwise, it will be taking a long time. So this is a time young generation are give their life inside. And then they border, time of my border area to change the mindset, not only dictatorship. The mindset that we have, like in my generation, like in Zani, your generation, we have been systematically pressed there. And then we have been like, when I was young, I don't know. When I was young, they say about Burma is really scary. They are rebel, they are like kind of terrorists, terrorize the people. This kind of mentality and education system that inside Burma. So that everything had to be changed. So in order to do it, the elder generation had to be stepped down to support our generation.
Yeah, as you recall, you were one of the organizers of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi's public events with the Burmese community in London when she was here in 2012, and I think I see a very positive thing, in addition to the People's Defense Forces, young people taking up arms and fighting back because the military would not accept any type of genuine reform agenda from anybody, whether it's power sharing with ethnic communities or the genuine reforms about the human rights or democratization. So I think as we remember very well, the 10 years of commercial opening and a joint power sharing between the Aung San Suu Kyi and the military leaders, that wasn't really genuine democratization. That was a commercial opening of the country with semblance of I would say like a tokenistic reforms to make the Burma acceptable to certain Western powers, right? And so, so when we had the National League for Democracy and Aung San Suu Kyi leadership, with their old racist and nationalist mindset, we ended up as a country, as a majority Burmese Buddhist society, and as well as other non-Buddhist, national communities, we ended up supporting the military's genocide of Rohingya people. And now, there seems to be a radical and, welcome break when the new generation, Generation Z, soaks up, that progressive and inclusive values coming from Black Lives Matter movement, pro-LGBT rights, equality of, the different communities. And so that's a revolution in and of itself that's going on, in addition to the direct resistance against the military. So let me turn to Toru, because he traveled to Ukraine recently before he came over to UK. Can you talk that you recently gave an interview with Burma BJ YouTube channel, where you talk about your experience in Ukraine and taking shelter when air raid sirens came on, and then we have, as Ko Aung also said, the military is losing ground in some of the most important areas, especially Myanmar Buddhist heartlands, where they traditionally or historically got their new recruits. And now, like, the majority Burmese Buddhists no longer accept the Burmese military as a national army. They don't. So we see them as essentially a criminal gang with an air force, right? So that because they cannot, control the population in the way they used to, they are using air force and launch aerial bombings, airstrikes, using missiles from the air, heavy artillery fire, wiping out entire villages. Similar strategies they used during the last wave of genocide against Rohingya people in 2017. Entire villages were wiped out, people were burned alive, but they're doing it to the majority Buddhist Burmese, right? And so you told the Burma BJ interviewer that there were similar airstrikes, right, in Kiev and other places, and you actually saw with your own eyes how Ukrainian defense forces and people were responding.
Well, I was in Kiev until 2 weeks ago, and then I was only in Kiev, the capital city, which is obviously the safest city in Ukraine until now. And then, of course, there are attacks from Russia almost like every day. And then there's an air alert, siren is ringing every day. Sometimes I woke up with the like big sound of the explosion in the middle of the night. The sky looks so bright at the moment. So the missiles is flying from Russia and attacking, but I felt very protected somehow because the anti-missile function is really working well, and then so you can almost everything is shut it down by the anti-missile system. Also, you've got like a warning system. That's how the siren and everything is working. So even though you were being under attack like every day, people felt safe and I felt protected. Of course, even though you can shoot it down, that sometimes the debris fell down and then the people were killed from these fallouts. 2 people were killed even during my trip as well. But I asked around the people, what do you feel about this reality? People saying, like, you care about this thing? Like, it's just I'm sorry for the people who are killed, but it's more like a traffic accident. You can kill by a traffic accident anytime. Same like this. You have to accept this. So this is kind of the people's mindset. They're kind of like get used to that reality that you're being attacked like every day. So that was what I what I felt, and then at the same time, I cannot help thinking about the Burma. Was in like a village, like people and even like young children were bombed without any notice, without any warning system, without any anti-missile system. So obviously, it made me think you really need these things if you are you think about people who are under the attack and those completely innocent children or villagers or teachers who are under attack. So I think the Burma needs much more support, and I really hope they got more support as much as the Ukrainian people are getting right now. It's not only about like weapon or like those protection, everything and training, but also of course the humanitarian aid. Of course, it's not needed either. Food and the medication. Also, as Ko Aung pointed out, intellectual support, like more like support as it's more like a mental thing. Like we are really caring you guys. You know, I think what I'm doing through documentary is really about we are showing support. Like we care and we are caring the people who are caring these kind of things. I think so. This is more about the widening the circle of support. Very important.
Yeah, I mean, like
I
for,
will, I
for
will, can I,
go
can I
ahead,
ask
go ahead.
I would like to ask two questions to our comrade Turu. I know that in terms of supporting international support to the liberation movement inside Burma is quite a tricky for it. But what I read it is quite a tricky for international community to support like Ukraine, which is like I thought like only that unfortunately that in Burma, unfortunately it's only this sequel that the military dog institution, only one institution that we had. And the opposition are failed to institute their among themselves. So there have been no institution apart from Burmese. Unfortunately, these military dog that's why it's really difficult for the international community to how they support technically or moral, apart from moral and law-wise, nothing else they can do. I find it. I need two questions, Toru. And first question is, like Zani and me have like a lot of friends, quite a few friends, and been to Burma and a foreigner. I mean, the foreign friends been to Burma, arrested and came out. They most of them quiet and then just gone. And sometimes they are different. They change their mindset. And why you are when you arrested? Why you that you being like 4 months in the prison as 10 years sentence, and then why you keep doing it? It's like your former friend who killed on the street, and then who that like your friend Yogis keep doing the supporting our movement. Why is that? What is any reason you have?
It's because we are arrested, I guess. Because we were all like, I mean, both I and Yuki were arrested, and then, of course, what I'm doing right now as a filmmaker in general, I only not like a kind of person who only do things about Burma, of course, but of course, after we were both released, we are both arrested, we are both released thanks to someone else. That someone else includes not only people from Japan, but also includes people from Burma as well. Many Burmese people from Burma supported me, demanding my release everywhere, and in Tokyo, many people didn't like voice up. They couldn't voice up in Burma, but many people, I mean, some people like you guys, we need to, care, and also, we also know that like people are still in the prison and they cannot raise their voice. So we have to do it like instead of them.
Really appreciate that for your contribute, like in solidarity to us, and another question that is like, do you, when you go in a July to Burma trip, do you know that you will be go to arrest, or you planned it to arrest?
Of course, before I travel, the worst scenario, I thought about the worst scenario as well. I mean, the worst scenario is being killed, of course, but yeah, of course, I I thought about it. But at the same time, that situation in Burma, at the moment, if you were very careful about doing things, if you know what I was doing, I could have, you know, um, avoided. The risk can be avoided at any moment, and because I have a strong partner inside in local, so I, as long as I follow like advices, and there shouldn't have been any trouble. Yeah, so if I didn't jump into the protest, I couldn't be arrested. This is
Okay, thank you.
Well, I do wish to like respond to your comment earlier about that the Burmese military is the only institution well organized, and the
Unfortunate.
opposition, the opposition is very fractured. I mean, to a degree you are correct, but at the same time we have been in the internal military conflict or civil war, if you will, of like a fluctuating intensities since 1948. That's the year of independence. And so some of the, revolutionary organizations, particularly the Korean National Union, and also the Kachin Independence Organization that was formed in the early 1960s, then later the Chin National Front, and then Korean National Democratic or Progressive KNPP, Korean National Progressive Party. They have they control large swaths of their ethnic ancestral land, and that they have set up alternative governments, if you will. They have the education department, forestry department, administration, the economic department that taxes revenues from like traders going across the border. They also have you know the the natural resource extractive industry, although it's a bit limited compared to the Burmese military's control. And so I think like these organizations are also serving as the major backbones of the Burmese political People's Defense Forces. They give sanctuaries, they feed them, they train them, they even like equip them with weapons before funding from the Burmese communities around the world started coming in. And so I would think if international actors want to support them, either in terms of humanitarian cooperation, humanitarian assistance delivery, or like providing them with capacities and equipment to defend these communities. Now, the ethnic nationalities and the Burmese majority are very much in sync. Yeah, of course, like there are issues, like there are some the conflicts that need to be addressed. But we have a very good working relations and understanding among these like established revolutionary organizations. And so I think if the international community want to support, we already have alternative structures of administrations, right? And so I think it is quite a lazy excuse coming from Western capitals, telling us that, well, oh, you are not united, you don't have a single organization, therefore we cannot support you in terms of like defense assistance. I mean, that's a rather lazy excuse, like on the ground, like, more than half of the country are in the hands of the revolutionary forces, and so that's why the military is relying on airstrikes. And so um, do you have final thoughts on both the resistance and the changing of values among the younger generations, and both of you, and then we'll close the conversation.
Yeah, of course, Johnny. I agree with you absolutely. We know very well about how the Indonesian community are responding since a long time. We have been campaigning and lobbying that
Like
all
30
about
years.
interest. All about their interest. Yeah, we know that's why like young generation are telling that like we don't need to wait for the Indonesian community to rescue us. We will be rescue ourselves. That's why their mentality is really great. And the Indonesian community is very much failure, which is like so utterly failure, and they preaching that the Indonesian humanitarian law, every Indonesian law having they breached that where they wrote and they breached this protocol because they failed to deliver to the cross-border aid to the effect that the military operation affect the area like KMPP and the KNU having asked to the Indonesian community to please help. Forget about arming the guns. Don't arm to us. Just help up to help our community about humanitarians. Though even though forget about any guns or any, these humanitarian aid have been not delivered. It's a utterly failure of Indonesian community.
There are 2 million internally displaced people, and then the United Nations agencies were signing memorandum of understanding with the Burmese military that is being tried or being credibly accused of committing genocide. So it makes me feel that the UN agencies are comfortable sitting in the same room and signing memorandum of understanding and giving them millions, despite the genocide allegations, and then even the United Kingdom's travel advisory issued by the British Foreign Office or Home Office, the British nationals going to Burma, be careful because terrorists can attack. When they use the term terrorists, that they mean like people's resistance forces, and then like they can consult with local authorities. And so, they keep the Burmese military's ambassador in London and kicked out, the old ambassador who said, I support Aung San Suu Kyi and democratic government, while the United Nations General Assembly, denies the military any type of representation. And so, UK, United Nations is not a powerful agency or organization because members have the power. The UN as a whole doesn't have any power. And UK is even worse than the United Nations. That, and then UK keeps the Burmese military's representation full, and on Charles Street in London, and then and then calls our resistance organizations terrorists. It's very it's UK authorities speak like snakes with the forked tongue. I mean, it's just one example.
I cannot really speak about the revolutionary forces because I don't have no what is on it. But I can talk when it comes to the media people, the younger generation, they know exactly what they have to do, and then they are much more open-minded, and they as for example, for example, about the Rohingya issue as well. They know what they have to do, and they know what they're more self-reflective, and they know, like, shedding light on the minorities is more crucial than ever, and then they are more united. And even for Dokyatan project, we recently get informed about the one Rakhine media professional who's working with the Rohingya, then reporting about aftermath of the cyclone, which was really something like piece of work that values the most, because if you hear about the Saizo Taik, a photojournalist who was arrested when covering the aftermath of the cyclone Mocha, sentenced to 20 years. So thinking about meeting these like new people who's doing really great things, more than happy to work with them and support them, like building their own future.
Well, if we are almost 15 minutes past the hour, and so we're going to close this. And you've been listening to two very distinguished guests, Ko Aung, the former political prisoner and political exile in Britain, and also he's also like fighting for the rights of asylum seekers as a legally trained professional in London. And then Toru Kobuta, the very brave documentarian from Tokyo, Japan, using his skills to support the oppressed communities fighting back, not just Burma. And so, and then the same goes to the Ko Aung as well. He supports a Palestinian movement and others. And so, we are human rights activists, and so we support the communities fighting for human rights. And so, of course, like our concerns are, around Burma or Myanmar, but we extend our solidarity to any communities, and we do anything we can to support those communities. And then thank you to these two brothers here, and to have a great evening if you're in Bangkok. And have again, like, thanks for tuning in for today's dialogue.